Staying well, David Pryor with you tonight. In a celebrity-obsessed world where people's lives play out on social media every minute of the day, it can be easy to fall into the trap of thinking you need to have it all to be successful. And even worse, it puts enormous pressure on yourself trying to achieve these so-called perfect lives. Author of Step Up, Michelle Gibbings, says that it's time to bust the myth and get real about life, and says that nobody really has it all and gets what they want all the time. Michelle is here on Staying Well to suggest some ways to reframe the way that you actually think.
Look, one of the things in life is it's a series of trade-offs, and that means to get something, sometimes you've got to give something else up in return. And it's about prioritising. You work through, what are your goals, what do you really want, and what does that then mean that you need to sacrifice to get there? So I know when I left corporate to set up my own business, I had to make a series of trade-offs. I walked away from a large corporate salary, so I knew in the first couple of years, I wouldn't be earning the same amount of money that I was earning when I was in corporate, but I would have more autonomy. So I was making a deliberate choice. I wanted to do something different, but I gave up something else in return to get that.
So a series of trade-offs, as you say.
Exactly.
All right. Embrace the uncertainty is another point.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. Often people think that if they feel uncomfortable or they feel uncertain, that they should shy away from it. Whereas I would say that often when you're uncertain, it's just your brain's way of telling you that you haven't done something before. The way we learn is that our brain is creating a new neural pathway, and every time it does that, it goes, wow, I'm doing something new. So I often say to people, if you're feeling uncomfortable, embrace that discomfort, because it's just your brain telling you that you're doing something new. And if you do everything that you've always done before, you're not stretching yourself, you're not learning, you're not challenging yourself. And to get where you want to get in life, you do need to push beyond your comfort zone.
Yeah, we sometimes do get ourselves into a rut, don't we? And sometimes along comes either a job sacking or a relationship ends and you think, oh my goodness, where am I going from here? But it's a chance to actually jump over the hurdle.
Oh, look, exactly. And it's interesting. I often, if I look back in my own life, there's been, certain moments where in the midst of that moment, I'm thinking, wow, this isn't really all that fun. But you look back and in hindsight, you go, if that hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't be where I am now. And as a consequence, I'm in a much better position. But often it is about looking at that negative thing that's happened or something where it hasn't quite worked out the way you wanted it to work out, and then reframing what it means for you as opposed to sort of wallowing in it and seeing it as something that then defines who you are.
We're talking to Michelle Gibbings, the author of Step Up, Why Having It All is a Myth, how we can reframe our thinking, particularly reframe the game is another point that you say.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. We don't always get what we want. And, I can go to a very personal experience in my life when my husband and I found out that we couldn't have children, and we always wanted to have children. And it was just, it was something that was completely outside of our control. And we made a choice that we were going to sit down and work through, what was everything that we could do because we couldn't have children. So we reframed how we saw our life and what our future was going to be. Now, that didn't mean that we weren't sad, and it didn't mean that there weren't occasions where, you'd have to sit down and go, wow, this doesn't feel all that good. But once again, we sat down, we did it as a couple, we worked through what were going to be the best options for us in light of the fact that we couldn't have children.
Yeah, okay. And so you started by writing down a list, I believe.
We did. We actually started by writing down a list of everything we could do because we didn't have children. And number one was have holidays whenever we wanted to. And that sounds a little bit sort of glib, but it was one of those things where
it was looking at the positive in the negative.
It was, and we also had things down there. I'm very lucky. I've got lots of nieces and nephews, and I'm godmother to a number of children, and so I was looking about what our relationship with those children would be like, as opposed to what we thought the relationship with our own children would be. And also we had to talk about ourselves as a couple because we originally thought that we were going to be parents, but then found out that we weren't going to be parents. So what did that then mean for us as a couple in terms of how we saw ourselves and our relationship and where that relationship would go?
That's a good point. You can't always control the situation that's around you. You can't also control another person's emotions either. So you have to learn to live with the positive that you're given.
Look, exactly. And I mean, I always remember my mother, and I love my mum dearly, but my mum used to ring me and she'd say, Michelle, are you depressed? And I'd go, well, I can't control the outcome. I can be sad about it.
Yep.
But there was no point me getting depressed about something that I couldn't control. And I often say to people, there's a lot of things in life that we can't control, but there's also a hell of a lot of things that we can control or we can influence. And focusing on the difference is really important, because often we spend a lot of energy and time focusing on the stuff that we can't control. And that's actually a waste of time. Whereas if you can channel your energy into the things that you can control or that you can influence, you're much more likely to end up with a positive outcome.
Yeah, another point that you make too, give yourself a break. What good advice.
Oh, look, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. Sometimes people will take this to the extreme and think giving themselves a break means they spend the rest of their life, sleeping in until midday, eating chocolate and wearing a tracksuit.
Nice.
So I'm not recommending that. But it really is just a reality that sometimes things in life don't go according to plan, no matter how hard you've tried or how hard you've worked. And so it's about looking at that and then reflecting on what you've learned from what hasn't quite worked out. And it doesn't mean that you don't ignore the fact that you're upset, because I think it's really important to acknowledge how you're feeling about something. But, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you work out, well, what do I do next? That hasn't worked. How do I now look at what I need to do next?
Write your own script is another point that you make.
Look, exactly. I find it really interesting. I do a lot of work with clients who are going through career transition, and often when they're going through career transition, they'll look back at their career and find that some career decisions they made, particularly early in their life, were actually decisions that were influenced by very well-meaning adults or parents around them, and it wasn't necessarily what they wanted to do. And it was only in later life that they worked out, actually, for part of my life, I've been living the life that someone else has wanted me to live, as opposed to doing what I really feel I need to be doing and what my passion is. So often, the advice we get from people can be incredibly well-intentioned, and sometimes it can be very helpful. But at the same time, if you're not reflecting on that advice and then working through what does it mean for you and what do you really want to do with it, you end up living someone else's life as opposed to the life that you need to live.
Very much so. And also, don't ever compare with other people. Do your own thing. Write your own script, as you say. When we compare with other people, I find that people lose their way. You're trying to keep up with the Joneses. But anyway, write your own script, another point. And drop the brave face. This is a really good point. Ask for help if you need it.
Look, exactly. And all of the research into the state of mental health issues in Australia shows that it's an increasing issue in Australia. There is enormous pressure on people to live this perfect life. And if you can't put your hand up and say, this isn't working and I need help, it just exacerbates the issues that you're facing. And that's why, for me, this whole message around, bust the myth is really important, because so much of what we see on social media isn't real. I was reading something earlier this year, and the report said, up to 2/3 of what is on social media is made up. So people are constructing lives on social media to live a life that they think people feel they need to have, or to make themselves feel better about something. And that's a really unhealthy way to live.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Drop that brave face. If you need help, ask friends, ask those around you. Michelle, it's really lovely to speak with you. Can we find out more from a website and your book as well?
Look, absolutely. So if you go to my website, which is michellegibbings.com, and you can purchase a copy of the book from the website as well. So it's Step Up, How to Build Your Influence at Work.
Yeah, you bet. Michelle, it's great to speak with you tonight. Thank you very much for joining us on Staying Well.